So, folks, as you can see, I have Christopher Timms with me, and we're going to talk about corruption. What is it? And that's a title that Christopher and I decided on as we were discussing this a little bit before we started the camera rolling. So, Christopher, what is corruption?
What is corruption? I was thinking about that as I was eating my breakfast, Ron, as you had mentioned, that to Yolanda, kind of as a speculative idea. And it really fits the human experience as it's particularly personified on the culture of today. And as you and I spoke just a few minutes ago about the idea, this realm, the realm of duality, the realm of you and I, is in physics terms and in mystical terms, is an illusion. That's why it's called Maya.
Right.
And yet, at the same time, it certainly seems to be real. They got all this stuff.
The experience is real.
That's right. The experience is real, and that is because of what Einstein coined as relativity. This is our relative state of perception. So therefore, everything within this bandwidth of our experience appears to be real relative to our perception. And that is true, not just in the physical world, but it's true in the world of ideas, in the world of religions and belief systems and all these things that seem to be intangible or non-physical things, yet they have physical implications in our lives.
Indeed.
Indeed. So when we look into the world of ideas, of belief systems, of governmental systems, of all these different things, then by nature of what the illusion is, by nature of what the nature of this reality is, there's a master cycle that exists within everything. And this master cycle is behind every biological function, every galactic function, every subatomic function, as it has to do with emergence, systems development, and then what's called entropy. And when you look into most any organization or system, there's an innocence and a hopefulness and an excitement, when someone starts a new group, when there's a new religion or idea that starts, a sincere joy or an idea, a new republic or a government or a nation is founded. There's a hope, there's a theme, there's a joy, there's an innocence there. At least hopefully there is. And then as time progresses, as that becomes organized, then there's a moment in that systems organization, from emergence into systems organization, where the system, again, government, religion, economic system.
And in a way, those systems all are intertwined.
That's right. That's right. I'm just mentioning all the names so that people don't think we're segregating anything. Everything's included in this. There comes a point in systems organization where the system develops its own self-determining, self-sustaining ideology. All of it happens in the cells in your body, happens in governments, it happens in economic systems, happens in ecosystems. The primary existence is to maintain its existence. The primary reason for its existence is to maintain its existence. And if you look at all the systems around us right now, that's pretty much what's going on. And that is the beginning of the cycle of entropy. And entropy is when the system's intelligence disregards its fundamental hopefulness and a lot of the fundamental themes of its original emergence, and leverages all of its energy, all of its dynamics into perpetuating its own existence. Governments, economic,
or maintaining the illusion.
Right, maintaining at all costs. And you can see that conspicuously in the world economic picture, in governments all around the world. And social systems, school systems, medical systems. These are all self-determining systems of their own intelligence. And just like the big gangs from El Salvador, MS-13, you know, those they tell you that they only have one reason to exist, and that's to perpetuate their own existence at all costs. They tell you that, you know, and they'll do anything to keep themselves going. And that's how ruthless the systems of the world are. Multinational corporations, you know, the AMA, you know, we can go through the whole list, you know, all of them are reflections of an entangled, as you said, Ron, an entangled web of systems that form one macrocosmic system, which is crashing. And a great picture for everybody to have is like of a mushroom. And as a mushroom grows, it has this beautiful, simple stem. And depending upon the species, if it's a mushroom with a big cap, it's emerging. You know, from the mycelium in the earth, it begins to emerge, it progresses up, and then it forms a cap. This is systems organization. And now it wants to self-perpetuate, and all systems get bloated, they get bigger, they get more and more inefficient as they get bigger, and that's what happens to the cap. The cap gets bigger and bigger, and it's unstable, just like all the systems become. And then what happens to many mushrooms that you see is that they
tip over.
They tip over. That's called entropy. That's when the system literally consumes itself with its own willingness to perpetuate its own existence at all costs, even though it's unstable, even though it has no foundation. Look at the economies, the governments, the medical systems, everything around you, and it just collapses. And that's where we are right now, all over the world, at all different levels. And of course, I want to point out that that is a simple reflection of what's happening within each one of us. The corruption within each one of us stems from the misunderstood precept, you know, a lack of correct information that teaches us that we are all separate, that there's something inadequate about each one of us, sin, karma, whatever kind of ideology you happen to buy into, and that we somehow have to remedy this situation to be okay again, to function within a spiritual wholeness, you know, and that's a story that has variations on that theme throughout.
Yeah, David, I'd call it problem, reaction, solution.
Problem, reaction, solution. That's right. And so we can see that same journey that's happening within each one of us is broadcast out here into the world. And so the world's trying to tell you about the entropy, about the old you. The old systems of the world are you. You're the tyranny of the systems of the world. And as that collapses, these belief systems and ideas and notions within yourself have to be let go of, you know, because otherwise the stem's going to crash with the mushroom. You know, the whole thing just crashes. And that's not really a problem. Even if it does, because there's still emergence, because the next day another whole crop of mushrooms comes up, you know, and that's the nature of emergence. So we are at that point right now where it is crashing, apparently in slow motion because of our perception of time, but it's all happening in the blink of an eye in cosmic time.
Oh, you know? Cosmic time, yeah,
yeah, right.
Probably less than the blink of an eye.
That's right. And so as the systems of our world, all the systems are falling under the weight of their own entropy, there is an emergence. And this emergence is the new world, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, however you want to coin it. And it is as of yet undefined. It is as of yet an unknown, but it's a beautiful, glorious thing. And all of the ancient prophecies, all of the ancient teachings tell us that we don't really know what it is. That's why, Ron, you know, for all the years, I've never bought any of these people, particularly all the New Agers and people that write about what the new world's going to be like and all this new stuff.
We don't know. It isn't.
You can't know.
Yet.
You can't. And because anything that we can imagine is limited to our state of relative perception right now. Within that bandwidth, so we can't. And that's why, you know, eye is not seen and ear is not heard. The great misunderstood.
I know that scripture.
That's right. That's right. And it's that's spoken in the Hopi stories and the Sunni stories and in the Gita and the Upanishads. It's there. Is that the time that awaits is beyond our imagination. So what's important is to see the metaphor outside everyone of the corruption of systems, organization, moving away from the true nature, which is to serve. You know, believe it or not, the true nature of the government, of the economy, of the medical systems, of all the corporations, which are entities, systems unto themselves, the true purpose of them is to serve in a harmonious way, giving us a whole symphony of a beautiful life. That's their true purpose. But
there's a distorted purpose that comes.
Oh my God, right. But because of corruption is what? Forgetfulness and misinformation run rampant. It's turned from a virtuous endeavor into a perverted or a vice-driven endeavor. You know, the greed, you know, and the selfishness and the lack of consideration of choices and directions for the world, you know, by a lot of the things that have been going on since World War II and before, we know.
Oh, it's much longer than World War II.
That's right.
Much more ancient.
Yeah.
It's really been going on, I think, for millennia. But,
of course.
But
yeah,
at least, in our more modern era, at least for a few centuries.
Yeah, and we can trace that. There is the if we want to really look at corruption, and this is an interesting point because you know his history a bit as I do too. When you look at the timeline and look at ancient history, you know, Sumeria, Babylon, Old Kingdom Egypt, there was a time around 350 BC, and that was the beginning of the age of Pisces. That's when Plato found his way to the mystery schools at Dendara. And this is all history. This is not foo-foo stuff. All right. So somewhere right around that time, maybe 320, 350, but I don't have those figures in my head right now. But that astrologically was the beginning of another age. And each age has its own particular predisposition energy that literally washes through us and shifts our neurological functioning, where we began to segregate. Now, segregation is not evil. It's just segregation. We were moving into the experience of true duality. That's Pisces, the fish, swimming in opposing directions, yin and yang. And we were moving out of a time of unity and integrative wholeness into segregation. So as Plato, you know, was really one of the pivotal figures of trying to bring some of that ancient knowledge into Greece, the language system changed. And this is a key flag. All right. This is a key flag because in Sumerian, from what we know of Sumerian, but the better language markers are original Aramaic and Old Hebrew, particularly Old Hebrew. Those languages were perpetuated back into Egypt for 1,000 years.
Well, even Old Russian, from what I understand.
Well, they had no nouns. Is what I'm getting at specifically. I don't know about Old Russian, but okay. There were no nouns, and that's what's really important, because nouns do what? Nouns segregate everything: a tree, a car, a man, a globe, a wall, a picture. You know, these are all things. And that's what the Greeks started, because the Greeks were that beginning civilization. As soon as we did that, that was a flag of leaving an age where our whole languaging was based in verbs and qualities.
Life was a verb, not a noun.
That's
life
correct.
Was something that we experienced.
That's right.
It's not something that was encapsulated.
So about the best way, and the way I teach this is in mystery school teachings, is that if you were to look at a tree, about the best way we could describe it according to congruence to ancient language, everybody, is that if you look at that thing out in the yard that we call a tree, an item, a thing, in the ancients it isn't that. It would be God treeing. And everything is God. In the Aramaic, the word is abun. The abun, that's the all-inclusive unified field. that has all these infinite forms. But whatever the form of it is, apple tree, pear tree, car, truck, man, woman, child, building, planet, solar system, galaxy, it's all abwun. There is nothing else. It's that unified field. So there were no nouns in the ancient languages, and because of the neurological dynamics that were at work as we moved into the age of Pisces, we immediately began to not through any type of purposeful misdirection or deception, but just because we interpreted information differently as soon as the dynamics changed. And as soon as we moved into the age of Pisces, Plato, and Pythagoras, all of them, they began to frame a language and a cultural system based on items and nouns. And there are none, again, in ancient Hebrew, there are none in ancient Aramaic. And so therefore that totally changes the whole teachings of Jesus. It totally changes the whole understanding of Buddhism. It totally changes, the interpretations of Hinduism, because we interpret them through eyes of duality and segregation and nouning. And even a Christian pastor years ago, maybe 5 or 8 years ago, wrote a book, and it was called God is a Verb.
I think I came across that at one point.
Yes, and boy, he was heckled, and he was just harassed. I'm surprised he didn't get torched, by the non-judgmental Christian community. It totally broke doctrine.
Is there a non-judgmental Christian community?
It's the judgment of non-judgment. Yes. Yes. And so what the premise was, of course, is that God is not an old man sitting with a big stick waiting to judge you, assess you, reward you, punish you. Not a being, a male dynamic, waiting to oversee, to protect, defend, or, any of that there is a quality that we're all a part of. And that totally breaks Christian doctrine, because in Christian doctrine, God is separate from creation.
Right.
Has to be. That's a fundamental premise. And
see, I believe that both separate and within, beyond and within.
Well, that's the nature of duality. Of course, that's paradox, man. And it's really not a paradox. It appears to be, but it makes total sense. It just depends upon one's definition of inside and outside, which is a relative state again. Here's Einstein, right? So corruption has to do with misinformation. Corruption has to do with a misplaced point of perception, and as we elevate our consciousness through fundamental spiritual practices and just questioning the nature of reality, questioning is hugely important. Right?
I totally agree. Those that don't question become very gullible.
Yeah, I was watching an interview with Eric von Daniken the other day, who I've always enjoyed. I may disagree with some of his conclusions about things, but Eric von Daniken is now 82, maybe something like that, and he's still out there, lecturing, and he's really.
I didn't know he was still active.
Oh yeah, he's great. And those of you who don't know, he wrote Chariots of the Gods many, many years ago, along with a whole 20 other books. And he's traveled the world. He's done all these great things in pursuit of exploring. And he said 4 times in this half-an-hour interview that the most important thing is not what conclusions we draw from any of our observations and explorations, like in Nazca and Egypt and any of the places that he's been. The most important thing is that we keep on asking the questions.
Oh, I absolutely think that questioning everything is our responsibility.
Sure it is, because how else are you going to bring out from within you this childlike sense of curiosity, where you really want to know what is going on? Except by questioning.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing that for a long time, and more so in recent times than even earlier. But I was accused of Are you here to learn, or are you here to make trouble? I remember one of the elders of the church asking me that because I was questioning things about my own upbringing.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
I remember years ago on that same note, Ron, that Yolanda and I went to, we were friends with a pastor from a little church where I played drums, for a number of years. Didn't buy into the doctrine, but I loved all the music, so we would go and had
Pentecostal churches have great music.
Yeah, well, this was not quite Pentecostal, but it was pretty open. So anyway, just Christian rock was great, and being a drummer, I loved wailing away. And of course, there's no drugs or drinking, so to me, I was right at home because I'm not engaged in any of that stuff.
Me either.
Yeah. So what we were at a study, Bible study one night, because I like hearing what other people have to say about things, And so the pastor, who's a doctorate, he has his doctorate in psychology, and he has his doctorate in divinity, and he knows Old Greek, modern Greek. I mean, he's just very learned guy, really in his head. And we were teaching, we were studying something out of the New Testament. I forget what it was right now. The book of Ephesians, one of my favorite books from the Apostle Paul, and who was a rehabilitated Roman soldier, incidentally, but that's a different story. And during a coffee break, I said, "Hey, Paul," that's the pastor. I said, if you read the Gnostic texts, and his eyes just began to glaze over. As if you read the Gnostic text, you'll get. I mean, there's all this richness about the life of Jesus, and there's texts about what Jesus, the kind of stuff he did when he was a young boy, and none of that's in the Bible. And I think everybody would really love hearing all this stuff. And he just looked at me and he said, "Why would anybody want to do that?" And I said, "Well, because it's there." He said, "But the Word of God is here." And I thought,
yeah. Well, I've had a couple of conversations with the Baptist minister who lives right behind the complex where I live. And in fact, I was using his parking space there when they don't have meetings. And that's what precipitated our conversations. But the Bible is the only Word of God. God has never spoken anywhere else,
No, that's right.
And it's insane to me.
So I don't, of course, Ron and I don't prescribe to that one at all. And I experience what you could call the song of the universe or the voice of God, whatever it is, the presence of God within everything all of the time, and that God's never stopped speaking. And physics bears that out too, because if we can call the Big Bang the voice of God, because the indigenous stories talk about the great maker sang upon the still waters, and then all of creation began to occur. That's one of the indigenous stories. It's a great way of talking about it. The great maker, call it God. It's a way of trying to interpret things, sang vibration upon the still waters, oneness, and then all creation occurs. If we can use that as a storyline about the Big Bang, the Big Bang is still happening right now, because the Big Bang occurred prior to the establishment of the medium in which we experience our existence: matter, energy, space, and time. The Big Bang occurred, and the Big Bang didn't occur within matter, energy, space, and time. The Big Bang occurred and generated the medium on which we experience life, called matter.
It gave birth to, in other words.
Time. So Big Bang experiencing, because it is an experience prior to the establishment of time and space, it's still occurring right now.
It's eternal. Yeah.
It's eternal.
No beginning and no end.
No beginning and no ending. So this whole idea, that that so many of the religions have, And there's so many
Well,
ideas.
creation happened in 4004 BC, if I remember right.
Yeah, according to the Christian diet, that just drives me insane. Drives me insane. And and there, I remember Paul believed that too. The pastor, he had it all set up.
Yeah, and I don't argue with people. I mean, there's no point in it.
No, and the further I go down this rabbit hole over these decades, the less I say to anybody unless they approach me and start speaking with me. I can just enjoy people right where they are in their journey, and that's what we're really here to do. I'm not here to convert the world into anything, the world according to Chris or anything like that. I'm just here to love and to be kind to everyone and to leave it a better place than on which I arrived.
Well, do you think that the world's going to have a happy ending, or do you think it's going to be perpetually in this state of chaos and turmoil?
I think that we're certainly it's a big question. Okay, so
yeah, I know.
so let's do this by saying because each one of us, everyone, is the center of our own universe. And in one of the great illustrations from Michio Kaku in quantum mechanics is that all of us are perceivers, just like David Icke says. And perceivers and our perception is the act of what we call creation. And it creates within our soap bubble, the entirety of the universe. Each one of us is the epicenter of creation. And now there's a big cosmic bathtub of all of these bubbles. And each of us are connected to each other through each other. So we all share a collective perception, but yet we all have our unique perception simultaneously. And the journey of the collective, moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, with all the entropy that surrounds us, the crashing of systems, some will leverage themselves to go down with the ship. Does it really matter? No, because there is no death. There is no loss. Existence is a closed system. It's continuous cosmic recycling of everything. And so others, many, many, many more of us will begin to read the metaphor of what's happening in life, begin to disassociate from the old establishments and power systems of the world and move into this uncharted spiritual frontier, if you will, of the world that's in front of us, as of yet undefined. But yet we're willing to walk into this unknown territory together as a species, redefining ourselves as people, as beings, as villages, as towns, as priorities and values, everything. We kind of are reborn in this time, beyond what we can imagine. So many more of us will go there. So I will contend that, yes, we're going to move into an extraordinary place beyond war, beyond disease, beyond death, beyond any of that stuff. Those are just kind of markers pointing in the direction. We can't even imagine really what it is. But at the same time, there will be others who no longer can stretch and straddle trying to make it, and they'll leverage themselves back into the old systems. And what happens with them, and this is just my Chris opinion in consciousness, of course, because there's infinite probabilities that exist. So, I see that because existence, cosmic recycling that you call reincarnation in linear time, that the people that have made the decision to leverage themselves into the old familiar systems, even though they're crashing all around them, religions, governments, belief IDs, all that, those people will be reborn back into the same time period again to grow up and to make that same choice again. And maybe we've all done that.
Yeah, I suspect that that's probably true.
Yes,
Yeah, we're
it's been
getting
a
near the end
Groundhog
of
Day for
the half
humanity.
hour. That so go ahead and wrap up if you can.
Yes, no, that I just wanted people to hear that idea as something to consider, because as a world, I've had a feeling, and I did a talk about this about a year ago, Ron, where where this is Groundhog Day for humanity, and let's make a better series of decisions this time. We've been going through this loop, and like a time loop, and I would love us collectively to just move into a wonderful place together.
Yeah, that would be my ideal
Yes.
outcome. Also, I mean, I'd feel like my life actually accomplished something, but not that I accomplished it. You understand, but that I was part of it, there to see it and observe the transformation.
Yes.
And that's what I've always looked for. The whole thing is about transformation, and that's beyond corruption.
Yes. Yes, that's right. And so everyone, as we hold that vision of a world that is beyond our imagination, the idea of a goodness, that's within each one of us, waiting to express itself. I balance that in my life by taking care of my daily work, meaning I eat the way that I eat. I take care of myself and my family. I do the things just like Ron does that he finds precious and valuable to uplift and to give people ideas, to consider things that perhaps they hadn't considered before. And so we just take care of our daily bread as well as holding this vision. So you have to balance, because there's so many people that just hold some kind of vision and they're disconnected from everything. It's totally inapplicable. You're here, everybody, to experience this amazing time. So experience it. Be present.
Right. I agree. That's a good way to close. To
I
be
agree.
here and be present. And
I
if we
agree.
all learned that, we could probably have more satisfying lives.
Yes.
If we weren't always living in what failed in the past or failed expectations of what we thought was coming in the future, be here now, as
Ram Dass said many years ago. Right. So,
right.
Ron, can I tell everybody as we go that I just relaunched my website? It's brand new. I'd love everybody
Absolutely.
to look at
And I'll probably include that in the blurb too.
Please, yeah, that would be great for everybody. And it's of course www.christophertims.com, and a brand new website, totally different approach. I'm really looking at moving into much more of a broader reach into the world, everybody, because let's play big.
Yeah, I
That's what
agree.
we're looking at doing. So thanks, Ron. Thank you very much for having me. It's always good to see you and to hang out a little bit. Our lives are busy these days, but it's just good to connect, man.
Thank you very much, Christopher.
My pleasure.
Namaste.
Namaste.